Hey everyone, it's Anthony. I have a hypothetical geography video for today. It's something that I've always pondered and thought about. What if the Appalachian Mountains were over 10,000 feet in the present day with the same continental positioning? In geological history, the Appalachians were a lot higher than they are now, with some estimates saying that parts of the mountains were 20,000 feet in elevation. This was during the earlier parts of the Paleozoic era, around 400 million years ago. Today, the highest peak in the Appalachians is Mount Mitchell in North Carolina at only 6,684 feet. But what if the Appalachians were as high today and within the last few hundred years as they were 400 million years ago? What would have been different about the US in terms of physical and human geography? In this video, we're going to dive into some of those speculations. If you'd like to give your opinion, please do so in the comment section below. Let's get started. The landscape on the high Appalachian mountain chain would look way more prominent. Instead of the smaller mountains and rolling hills visible in states like Pennsylvania, you would see mountains that more so resemble the Rockies and the Sierra Nevada mountains. This would add a landscape similar to the present western U.S. to the eastern U.S. States from Alabama to Maine would have a very rugged terrain within, which would most likely feature more igneous and metamorphic rocks instead of the sedimentary rocks that are more common in the Appalachians today. Usually, newer and higher mountains tend to have more volcanic geology to them, in that erupting or previously erupting magma or lava solidify into intrusive or extrusive igneous rocks respectively. Under heat, pressure, or both, some of these rocks will change to metamorphic rocks. The higher Appalachians would likely lead to different ecological systems. In terms of fauna, different animals would inhabit the mountains, such as ones that are seen out west, like brown and grizzly bears, mountain lions, and wolves. The ruggedness of the mountains would allow these animals to have territorial associations within the area. In terms of flora, the higher elevations would allow subarctic to arctic plants and trees to grow as far south as the southern U.S. Some parts of the highest peaks would not even have plants or trees on them, as they would be above the tree line. Meteorological conditions within the mountains and surrounding areas will be way different than they are now. First, within the mountains, the higher elevations will be significantly colder even during the warmer months. Peaks that are 20,000 feet high may be covered by ice and snow all year. On the windward side of the mountains, states such as Ohio, Kentucky, and Tennessee would likely see an increase in precipitation since windward sides of the mountains are generally wetter. These states, with winter cold snaps plus moisture, would also see an increase in snowfall accumulations. The Midwestern U.S. also may be more extreme continentally, with extremely hot summers and brutally cold winters. On the contrary, the eastern coastline, being on the leeward side of the mountain, may be drier. Also, the height of the Appalachians would probably block Arctic air from Canada, so cities such as New York City, Philadelphia, and Washington, D.C. would have milder winters. At the same time, heat and humidity from the Caribbean may be enhanced and directed towards the northeast, so summers may be hotter and more humid. Also, since continental positioning would be the same, hurricanes from the Atlantic would still affect the eastern seaboard. Some of these storms have tons of moisture and dump between 10 to 30 inches of rain. This would mean that the higher elevations of the taller Appalachians would be more prone to flooding rain, enhancing river discharge downstream, which in turn could cause catastrophic flooding for populated eastern cities. A combination of physical and human changes may also occur. Since the Appalachians would be topographically higher, this would definitely increase outdoor tourism year-round. During the summer months, tourism will be associated with parks, which in the case of taller mountain chains would be similar to Yellowstone and Yosemite out west. Thousands of people would flock to these parks, increasing outdoor tourism revenue for states such as New York, Pennsylvania, West Virginia, Tennessee, North Carolina, and Georgia. The same states would also benefit from wintertime skiing. Although parts of the Appalachians currently do have ski slopes, they're no match for ones found in places such as Vail and Aspen, Colorado, and Park City, Utah. But a higher mountain chain would allow wintertime revenue for these states. When Europeans came to the U.S. in the 1600s, the first settlements were in the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic states, such as Massachusetts, Connecticut, New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Virginia. After the U.S. declared its independence in 1776 and ratified a constitution in 1788, Western expansion began. With higher Appalachians, would this expansion have been as rapid? It's possible that it wouldn't have. Although humans have the capabilities of traveling through rugged terrain, even in pre-industrial days, it could deter it a bit. It's quite possible that areas west of the Appalachians would have not been settled as quickly. Cities such as Cleveland, Chicago, and Cincinnati were all settled in the late 1700s and early 1800s. But higher mountains might have delayed this settlement for decades. If that were to happen, these cities, especially Chicago, wouldn't be as nearly populated as it is now. With that said, East Coast cities would have likely seen higher populations then and even today. Instead of New York City proper having 8 million people, it might have been on par with cities such as Tokyo proper, which has 14 million people. The interstate highway system's construction started in the 1950s. A tour Appalachians would have had a possible impact on construction progress, delaying it and costing more. In order to build a highway through a mountain, blasting from dynamite is needed. Obviously, with higher mountains, more dynamite is needed, which in turn would have cost more money. I-280 is an interstate highway in New Jersey traversing Essex County. It goes through two small but steep mountains, the first and second Watchung Mountains. When 280 was being constructed in the 1970s, there was a lot of difficulty engineering it through the mountains. A tunnel was even proposed, but rejected because it would cost even more. Ultimately, the highway was constructed through the mountains and opened in the mid-1970s. But the hypothetical thought of constructing highways such as I-90, I-80, I-40, and other interstates through very high Appalachians is questionable, since the cost would have been astronomical. Perhaps only a few of the many interstates would have been constructed, thus creating certain traffic difficulties. Freight rail systems, which are the backbone of interstate commerce in the U.S. and amongst the best systems in the world, would have shared the same difficulties of construction as interstates. Therefore, transporting goods from coast to coast would have been more arduous. If transportation of goods is more grueling, this would mean that transported merchandises would be more expensive. However, keep in mind that since we are living now in the 21st century, interstate highway and freight rail projects would have likely been completed through treacherous terrains. Hypothetical higher Appalachians would have created differences within the U.S. The differences would have positively and negatively affected this country at the same time in different ways. Interestingly enough, topography will change again in the far future, as places continue their journeys. But will humanity be here to see new mountains and other new topographical features? That's a whole other question in its own. How do you think the U.S. would be different with taller Appalachians? If you'd like to give your opinion, please do so in the comment section below. Again, thank you for watching my video. Until next time!